Welcome to Pride's 2022. I'm going to show you some video footage of representatives of all of the parties in the Scottish Parliament addressing the crowd from the top of an open-topped bus in front of the Parliament. You might be very, very surprised at some of the things that were said at this event. I was quite shocked, frankly, by some of the things that were said there. Now, as you're watching this video, do bear in mind that the worst is still to come. The worst is still to come. Do watch until the very end to get the full picture of just how low this has sunk. Now, I'm going to comment on this from the perspective of someone who doesn't particularly have any strong views about lesbian, gay, bisexual relationships, doesn't have any particularly strong views about transgenderism in terms of adults. They're not my personal views, but I'm going to set aside my personal views and commentate on other aspects of it rather than the actual LGBT for adults theme which it's supposed to be about. So our first speaker is Alex Cole-Hamilton, leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats and Scotland's answer to Justin Trudeau.
Thank you very much. Happy Pride! Show me what democracy looks like. This is an audience participation moment. When I say that, you say, this is what democracy looks like. Let's try that again. Show me what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. Edward, you look beautiful today. You look absolutely gorgeous.
I always thought democracy looked like people going to vote at polling stations, but what do I know? Alex Cole-Hamilton there, he certainly seems to be enjoying his moment in the limelight, doesn't he? His rock star moment. And I think we can safely say there's at least one very enthusiastic member of the Alex Cole-Hamilton fan club present there.
Can I hear it for the kids that are here today? Because we're marching for their future as well as ours.
Glad the children are there. In an event about sexuality and gender change, is that appropriate? Are these themes for children? I would suggest not, but he is delighted the children are there. I would also say the children that are there are being used by adults to promote an adult agenda.
And what happened in America yesterday when a religious court assaulted reproductive rights? Shame on them! Because you know that if they come for reproductive rights, then gay rights are next. That they will come after equal marriage, and we have to stand in the vanguard of resistance to that right-wing extremism.
Right, so we had a strong pro-abortion message coming through, not just pro-abortion, but contempt for those who are pro-life. The people who are pro-life, people who defend the lives of unborn children, they are really the evil ones. And he's saying shame on, he's effectively saying shame on pro-life people, shame on Catholics, shame on other Christians, shame on most Muslims, etc., etc. And it just staggers me that he can say that. It's like, I know a church leader who I put on Facebook a few years ago now that he was going to vote for the Lib Dems. Like, just imagine the situation. Alex Cole-Hamilton would say to him, because of his pro-life views, he would say, shame on you. And he would say, I think I'll vote for you anyway. I mean, how do they get away with it? How do they get away with it? With treating people with traditional moral values with utter contempt, and yet a lot of them keep voting for the same parties. It really is bizarre. Now, he talks about the American Supreme Court as being a religious court. I mean, don't people normally say you should respect the decisions of courts, respect their neutrality? Isn't that an important part of democracy? But anyway, notice his attack. His attack is that they're religious. It's not that they misinterpreted the Constitution, that they made any sort of legal mistake, which might be a valid point to make, but he just thinks they're religious. So that's the problem. Same-sex marriage next? Well, maybe the Supreme Court might decide that. The state should decide about same-sex marriage. If they decided that, would that be a good thing? I'd argue that it probably would be, yeah. Would Alex Cole-Hamilton say it was a bad thing? Yes. But how can he say that? Same-sex marriage is devolved to Scotland. I've never heard him complaining about that. You can't have it both ways, Alex.
And most of us support the very much needed reforms to the GRA, because that is so necessary. But we are passing that legislation against the background of what can only be described as a moral panic. I am sick of that moral panic. I'm sick of a moral panic that is concerned about what pronouns our kids choose to use in school. I am sick of a moral panic about what public bathroom you use. I want to see a moral panic about plane loads of refugees being deported to Rwanda.
So concerns about children being led down the dangerous road of transgenderism he regards as a moral panic. Now, he says it's about what pronouns they use. That's the real concern. No, that's not the real concern. The concern is children being led down a path that will, in many cases, destroy their lives. Sometimes literally, and in more cases, in many, many ways, in terms of their emotional and relational future. Hugely damaging. And he dismisses that as a moral panic. Now, that just reminded me of a hustings I did at the election, when there was a question from the audience about transgenderism, and the Lib Dem candidate said, oh, there's more important things to talk about than that. I don't want to even talk about that. I was thinking, your party leader never shuts up about it. You can't have it both ways. So when they're actually meeting a normal cross-section of the public, they don't want to talk about it so much. When they're in front of the Pride audience, well, they're really going to sock it to them on this issue. Which is the real Lib Dems? The real Lib Dems is Alex Cole-Hamilton, because that's what they argue for in the Parliament. That's what's in their policies. He talks about the flights to Rwanda. He says he wants a moral panic. He doesn't seem to understand that moral panic is a negative term. It refers to irrational feelings with regard to something. But anyway, just to clarify with the flights, whatever you think of them, it's not refugees who are on them. It's people who might be refugees or might be found to be refugees at some later stage of the process.
I want to see a moral panic about picket lines against outside reproductive health clinics.
Right, so he brings up buffer zones, the idea of stopping prayer vigils, demonstrations, whatever, that are close to abortion clinics. What's that going to do with LGBT Pride? Obviously nothing. But clearly the spirit of the event is any sort of left-wing progressive political cause. You can bring it to the Pride event because everyone really knows it's just a gathering of those sorts of people. Now, my wife Maggie is organising the pro-life vigil in Edinburgh in the autumn. You know, sending emails around, getting a few people lined up. There'll be 2, 3, 4, 5 people, whatever, there at once, holding placards, praying. Pray for an end to abortion, the placards say, that sort of thing. And the entire apparatus of the state is being mobilised to stop it. I mean, it really is quite bizarre. As far as Nicola Sturgeon is concerned, it's as though number one priority is independence. Number two priority is stopping prayer vigils outside abortion clinics. If you look at what she's been doing the last few days, that seems to be the case. Absolutely hysterical response to it. But as far as we're hearing here, the key moral issue, killing the unborn, not interested in that. That's not a moral issue at all. It's people who want to pray outside abortion clinics. That's the real moral issue.
And I want to see a moral panic about a lying and corrupt Conservative Prime Minister. Show me what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! Happy Pride, I love you.
Okay, I wouldn't disagree with him about Boris Johnson, but what's it got to do with LGBT Pride? Right, we're now going to hear from Maggie Chapman, the Green Party MSP.
So today we send solidarity to the RMT Union and all those on strike. Our struggle is their struggle is our struggle, and united we will win.
Striking railway workers, what's that got to do with LGBT Pride? Now, I know the LGBT, I know they keep adding more and more letters on. It is hard to keep up. But I wasn't aware that striking railway workers had been added to the LGBT alphabet yet. But maybe they have. But it's obvious this is just a general left-wing progressive political protest, funded by the council and also state-funded, organised by the state-funded Equality Network. Schools go to these events. I don't know if there's any schools trips to the Edinburgh one. There might well have been. But school trips to Pride events certainly do happen around Scotland, where groups make banners with their teachers in school and then are transported to the Pride event in school transport and march in the march with their teachers. And I say it's just indoctrination.
The struggle against racism is the struggle for LGBTQI plus equality.
What can I say about that apart from the fact that it just makes no sense?
And it is also the struggle for global equality, and it is for that reason that I must express my deep discomfort at ExxonMobil's sponsorship of today's event.
I mean, ExxonMobil, the oil company, I mean, they're really trying to win these people over, but they should forget it. I mean, they just hate you. Face the facts. There's nothing you can do about it. But lots of other companies sponsoring these events. I think in some cases, they're huge international companies and they make huge amounts of money and they know that sort of anti-capitalist, whatever, they're going to be on their case. But a way of keeping them at bay, stopping them coming and smashing your windows, is to sponsor the Pride event. And does it work? Maybe it does, to some extent.
We cannot, of course, allow the dreadful news from the US yesterday to pass without comment. We know that the attack on abortion rights is an attack on all of us. Those seeking to restrict bodily autonomy in pregnancy are the same people who want to control the bodies of black people, of LGBTQI plus people, and at this time in particular, trans people. So we send a message of support and solidarity from Scotland to America, and we will work to ensure that this hate campaign and all hate campaigns across this country to harass women seeking access to sexual health are defeated.
Control the bodies of black people. I've got no idea what she's talking about. This hate campaign that's been organised by my wife. I wasn't aware that Mary was organising a hate campaign. I don't hear any hatred in it. Just wanted to go and pray outside an abortion clinic, offer help. But I say they absolutely despise people with pro-life views. Right, now let's move over to the Labour Party MSP and see if he has got anything profound to say.
Let's get it for the sunshine!
Well, that's not an encouraging start, but let's let him continue.
And too many LGBT plus people still tragically contemplate taking their own life. And these things don't happen in a vacuum. The onslaught of hate from sections of the media and online sometimes seems relentless.
Hate. I mean, where is this hatred? Who is it? Hatred in the media about the trans debate. I didn't read any hatred in the media. What he means is the fact that there has been a debate about transgender issues. He's suggesting that having that debate is killing people. So if you're someone who's been objecting to the trans juggernaut that's just dominating Scottish politics and education, then you're responsible for people dying. I mean, it's just hysterical nonsense. Now, the mental health outcomes for LGBT and T people are not good. I mean, that's a fact. That's not something that anyone is celebrating. But he suggests it's all because of, hatred. Well, I'm not so sure. It seems to me that the evidence is that lesbian, gay and bisexual relationships do not function like straight relationships in terms of yielding stability and life satisfaction. That just seems to be the facts of the matter. Similar with transgender identities, the evidence seems to be that people going down that road do not have, in general, overall, do not have positive outcomes in lots of areas of their life. Just that is the fact.
And there is no LGB without the T.
Now, some people like to say, the LGBT movement, there's a real split in it, because there's some that want to include the transgender and there's some that don't. Okay, that is technically true. There has been a split in it. But don't think this is some sort of 50-50 split. This is like a 98%, 2% split. The LGBT movement is, in effect, really pretty united and is still getting its own way on every front in terms of Scottish politics.
You are not alone.
You are not alone. How can you think it's necessary to tell people that they're not alone while they're standing in a huge crowd, being addressed by a representative of every political party in the Parliament, supported by virtually every institution in Scotland, supported by a huge range of businesses, etc. And he's saying you're not alone. It's like a fantasy world that they're trying to pretend that they're the tiny persecuted minority, but they're the establishment. Right, we now move on to the Conservative Party representative who is a councillor, and he seemed to naively think that the LGBT movement was apolitical, but he was in for a rude awakening.
Well, look, this is about diversity and about everyone being welcome at Pride. There are conservative MSPs, conservative politicians and conservative members across the country who are fighting for the rights and the freedoms of the individual to be able to be part of this community. Okay.
Now that's out of order, but in one sense it's a pitiful spectacle as well. The Conservatives so desperate to fit in, to be part of the trendy crowd, but it's just not going to happen, is it? At the end there, you see the girl from the Equality Network, from the government-funded Equality Network, smiling as the crowd chant Tory scum at the Conservative Party representative. Now, wouldn't it be interesting, when the Scottish Family Party's got a couple of MSPs in the Parliament, what will the Equality Network do for their Pride event? You'll assume, being non-political, they would have to invite a representative from every party in the Parliament. So would they either admit that they're not neutral, or would they have to invite someone from the Family Party? So maybe in a few years' time, I might be standing on top of that bus, being able to give a little speech. Now, you saw the reaction to the Conservatives. Well, anyway, I'm speculating. Let's see.
Oslo reminds us all, like all the other horrible attacks, the stuff that's going on in the US, the toxic debate that's going on here around about gender recognition reform, that Pride is a protest. We are here outside your Parliament on a cross-party basis supporting you in order to make sure that the democracy that we want to live in is never hampered by the right-wing nonsense and toxic agenda of people who would see us not as ourselves.
So we're off to the SNP now with Government Minister, and she's basically saying that pro-life views are horrible. So she's saying to, I'll say Catholics, evangelical Christians, lots of other people, lots of non-religious people who are pro-life, she's saying your beliefs are horrible. The trans debate has been toxic. Well, I think the poisoning of young minds has been a toxic element of the transgender issue in Scotland. But she said the debate itself has been toxic. I think the debate's been very restrained and respectful in the media, in the Parliament, but she says it's toxic. In effect, she wants no debate. She's saying this is a protest. I mean, this bizarre double-speak we've got here. I mean, it's a government representative leading a protest against what? Against the government? So they managed to create this strange illusion that the government are the rebels. But this demonstration, this event, is supporting the establishment. It's supporting the government. It's agreeing with the government. The government agrees with it. But it still manages to have this rebellious ethos about it, which really is quite strange. So she's talking about the right-wing agenda and toxic nonsense. That's what she means by pro-life views, or if you dissent from the transgender philosophy. She says that you're toxic, but a lot of people will say, okay, I'll vote for you anyway. Even though you utterly despise what I stand for, I'm going to vote for you in any case. Well, I would just urge people to think again.
Who will make sure that by the end of this year you will save your gender recognition reform?
Well, I guess that is true. That will happen because sadly that's what the electorate has voted for.
And can I say another thing? Trans women are women, trans men are men.
Well, people can cheer as loud as they like, but it doesn't make it true.
See, when we come back here next year and we're back together again, we are celebrating the gender recognition reform.
So in other words, they will be celebrating the fact that the voices of the likes of maybe Kate Forbes, John Mason, some of the other MSPs, they're going to be celebrating the fact that the voices of reason on the trans issue within the SNP have been dismissed, vanquished and defeated. They'll be celebrating that the next year. And now for the grand finale. It really is going to hit rock bottom in terms of degeneracy. Just watch this.
I now call, as is traditional, upon the sisters of the Perpetual Indulgence, who will lead us in the minute's noise and the minute's silence. Over to you, sister.
So why they're having this minute's silence is not really clear. But for a minute's silence, who do you ask to officiate at that? You pick, your chaplain, the spiritual guide, the custodian of wisdom from within your movement, from within your community. So who do they choose for this role at the Edinburgh Pride event? They choose the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Right, listen to the name. The name talks about sex addiction, sex obsession. If you look at their social media output, read about what they do, they are sex addicts, sex obsessives. That's who these people are. They dress as nuns and they go to Pride events. Why do they dress as nuns? Partly to mock nuns, to mock Catholicism, to mock the concept of sexual purity. With the name Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, sounds like the title of a porn film, doesn't it? But anyway, these are the people brought in as effectively the chaplains of the Pride movement to officiate at this minute's silence with representatives of all parties within the Scottish Parliament.
To think about those who aren't with us.
A little bit more about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, Edinburgh branch. If you look at their website, they talk about their 4 saints that they venerate. One of them, Ian Campbell-Dunn, they describe him as controversial on their website. He was a little controversial. He was the co-founder of the Paedophile Information Exchange. They give a link on the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence website to more information about Ian Campbell-Dunn on Wikipedia, and that tells you that he was the co-founder of the Paedophile Information Exchange. Who else is a saint of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence? Tim Hopkins, who also worked closely with Ian Campbell-Dunn in decades gone by, but is now the head of the Equality Network. The Equality Network shares a family tree with these various so-called gay rights groups, Paedophile Information Exchange, etc., going back through the decades in Scotland, all at the same address at 58A Broughton Street. Also, John Heenan was involved in the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. He was also a member of the Paedophile Information Exchange, and until very recently he was instrumental in organising the Edinburgh Pride event. What do the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence do? Well, I made a video. I'll put it in the link at the end of this one. Do watch it if you've got the stomach for it. They had a condom tasting session in the Meadows, which is an open park in Edinburgh. And this condom tasting session involved men standing with a piece of fruit at their crotch, so we say, with a condom on it, while people sort of licked and put that piece of fruit in their mouth while it was at their crotch. I mean, absolutely obscene. And you can see children walking past in the background. I'll spare you more detail about the obscene and perverted activities of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, but if you want to watch more about them, there's a video link at the end of this one. Do watch that to find the full story. You'll see the thumbnail for that shows Nicola Sturgeon posing with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence for a photograph with their arms around them. She would obviously understand exactly what they are about. I mean, they're sexual obsessives, and their activities and their philosophy is diametrically opposed to anything remotely resembling a healthy and decent sexual ethic. And here at the Pride event, no one objects. The Conservative Party representative, did he have any problem with that? No. Who's too busy saying, please like us, please let us fit in, please let us into your club? Whereas he should be saying, this is obscene, I don't want anything to do with these people. And it is just outrageous that they're being regarded as the chaplains for basically a collection of political representatives in Scotland. But remember, when you look at this Edinburgh Pride event, this is representing the establishment. This is what you're voting for if you're voting for one of the mainstream parties in Scotland. How low can it go? How much more explicitly can the nation of Scotland reject traditional moral teaching on sexual relationships and the family? How much more can they despise those who defend the unborn? What new forms of degeneracy can they find to endorse? Well, tune in to Pride's 2023 to find out. Now, in the family party, we often talk about sex education. Where does it come from? It comes from a political establishment that's got its values on display at Edinburgh Pride 2022. Is it any wonder that we've got corruption of young minds going on in schools when these are our political representatives? This is the true face of the political establishment. Now, when they're on their best behaviour, dealing with the general public, they're a bit more diplomatic, they're a bit more political. They'll try and choose their words carefully to try and keep other people on board. But at Pride, the masks are off and you see them for what they really are, and you see where we are as a nation. And it's not good. Obviously, as the Scottish Family Party, what's our message? Our message is to stop voting for this and instead start supporting the Scottish Family Party with our more positive vision for the future of Scotland. If you do want to support that vision, support us in our mission to bring that influence, to give it more and more power in Scottish political life, do join the Scottish Family Party or become a regular donor. We'd really appreciate that. We need your support. Thanks for watching, and do watch the video about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which will pop up on your screen just now. Thanks.